I'd love to challenge, especially men as well, just in friendship groups that might not talk much, just to try and hold space. Just listen and say, hey, I hear you. What you say is valid. And, I'm going to hold this space for you because it literally saves lives.
Do you often find people will come out and talk about a certain experience that they think they're alone in, but then it just happens to be that even in a small room, they're not alone?
Yep, we did one of them not too long ago, and the first girl that spoke about a domestic violence case. Out of a group of 25 people, 8 other people had the same experience, and they're all strangers to each other. How validating is that?
Did that take a little bit of adjusting for you to actually learn to embrace that extra time of not jumping in and saying something else?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that form of learning how to listen, and definitely developed over time. And I'm blessed with all the gifts and lessons that going down the beach and simply talking to strangers has given me.
When it comes to 25 to 50-year-old men, do you find it harder to get them to open up? Welcome to the Better Bloke Podcast. I'm Matty.
I'm Rob.
And we're just a pair of average blokes on a mission to try and be a little bit less average.
We're going to speak about all things highs and lows of what it feels like to be a bloke, plus speak to some legends along the way about what it takes to be a better bloke. Let's get stuck in. We are back for another episode of the Better Bloke Project, and today we have someone very special who is based down here on the Gold Coast with us. He has amassed quite a large following by simply just allowing strangers to have conversations that they probably wouldn't be having themselves. So we have Blair Rubock from Through Strangers' Eyes. It's a pleasure to have you on board, brother.
Thanks for having me, boys. Looking forward to the chat.
You blew up pretty quickly, pretty recently as well in the grand schemes of things by simply having conversations. And here with the Better Bloke Project, that's more or less what we've been trying to do. But you went and did it in the real world, which is a hell of a lot scarier. What sparked on that initial idea of, putting yourself out there and having an uncomfortable conversation?
Yeah, look, there wasn't a lot of thought going into it, really. I saw a lot of stuff on social media where there was people setting up and doing different bits of things. I think the one that sparked a bit of the inspiration was he was like playing music to people and saying if you had a bad day, come and sit down. They put on these headphones and he played these songs, which was great, but to me, it kind of looked like the interaction was a little bit like scripted kind of thing. Like they were acting surprised, and it was like, oh, come and like act like this and come onto it. And I thought, that's a cool concept, but I wonder if you could like get a real authentic version of this where people would come and sit down on their own accord and would just, have a chat with you, and it wouldn't be forced, and people would be able to see that whole interaction. And yeah, I remember having the idea for a while, and then I didn't really know how to act on it, and then went to Office Works and grabbed a couple signs and wrote my shitty handwriting on there and just said, come down and share your story or have a chat with strangers. And yeah, went down one night and then didn't get out of my car, just fear of judgment as it goes. And I was like, there was like so many people going along this park and down near the beach, just along the boardwalk there. And I couldn't get out of my car. I was like, fuck, there's too many people. They're going to think I'm an idiot sitting down there talking to myself behind a tripod. And funny enough, I went home and then came down the next day and I was like, I've got to do that. Didn't feel right going home and not doing it. Like, what's the worst that can happen kind of thing? And jumped down there, and then, within a minute of me setting up, her granddad and little granddaughter came and sat down and had a chat, and she told this beautiful little story about how she just caught her first barrel out in the surf. And as soon as I sat down, it was just this pure realization that was just human connection and there was no fear involved, and all that disappeared. And then ironically enough, I had 8 people come and sit down that night, which is the most I've ever had, and they shared their stories, and that was kind of a little bump from the universe going, there's a space for this, like people need this. And it's obviously evolved a lot since then, but that's kind of the gist of how it got started.
That initial, when you sat in your car and you were just like, you were obviously scared shitless, did that then go through your head when you got back home and play a massive part in like, no, fuck, I need to do this because it's sort of like a bigger purpose than yourself, or was it just a regret that pushed you to do it?
100%. It was a bit of both. It's like one of those things where you go away from something that you feel like's calling you inside your gut and inside your head and your heart and whatnot, and you don't do it, and you go like, oh, like you regret it straight away, and you're like, and for me, there was nothing to lose. Like if I sat down and there no one came and sat down, it was like I'd spent $400 or $500 on, a tripod and, some mics and stuff. Like there was nothing to lose. Like I got to sit down and watch a beautiful sunset down in, Currumbin. Like what a better spot to sit down there at the back and beach in the backdrop. I was like, if nothing happens, nothing happens. Like there was no real expectation that, really I thought no one would sit down. But that shows you like the fear replaying in your head and all these things that, we amplify 10 times what other people think in their head. Like I was thinking they're going to walk past and go, oh, he's an idiot. Like, look at this loser kind of sitting down there. And they, that they were my thoughts. People are just curious. Like And that's what I've come to find is people just like see this stuff that's like so out of the box and so unique and different that they're just like, holy shit, like this is cool. I love this. Like they might not sit down, but they'll look twice or 30 times. And then ironically too, a lot of people, they'll like ride past or walk past and be like, you know, I said in my head, if he's there when I come on my way back, you know, I'll sit down, I'll have that chat. So there was definitely a bit of regret there as well. But, you know, if you could feel it in your heart that it was something that you're meant to do. And it was just about navigating that and trying to get myself back down there. And yeah, instantly regret it when I got home. I was like, you know, I need to try this. So I went back the next day and then, yeah, that's where it all began.
So you had 8 people through on the first time. You went home, you cut it, and you started posting. Out of that first 8, was that when you've got sort of the first feedback from the socials? Like, hey, there's maybe something in there?
Yeah, it was just like, it's kind of, I'd never really edited videos before. I'd never really done much myself. Like I asked a few mates, I was like, oh, how do I do this kind of thing? And the guy worked in like, one of my mates, Blaine, he worked in like audio and a bit of stuff like that. And he's like, oh, just download like CapCut and, you know, chuck your videos in there and slice it all together. And I was like, I'll give it a crack. And funny enough, I was originally uploaded on my personal profile. I was like, oh, I'll upload on there. And it didn't really work out that way, but that was a good little lesson. But I tried there and then got lots of feedback from my friends though and immediate family and people close to me, like how good this was and how different it was. And yeah, it goes to show that we internalize these things and we get like real nervous and hide them away because we're like, oh, I don't know what people are going to think. And then as humans, we tend to focus on the negatives. Like it's just what we do. We amplify the negatives and we don't, you know, amplify the positives enough. So in my head, I was thinking, all the negatives that could come of it. And like, what if this happens? What if that happens? Where it should be like, what if this turns out better than I could ever expected? And which is kind of what I said. I was just like, fuck it, let's go for it. And I chucked them together with not knowing much of what was going to come of it. And yeah, beautiful reaction from it. And then a friend just said, oh, you should make like like a separate page away from your account that's just dedicated towards that. And then yeah, within a few weeks, one of the videos went viral and got like 30,000 followers from that and millions of views. And then it's just taken off ever since then.
You said that you've got a few people that have walked past and have gone, you know, they've told you if he's there, I'm going to stop in. Have you had guys, all girls, coming past multiple times and you've seen them for maybe like a few weeks on end and where you've had to reach out, like they maybe make that bit of a connection with you and you can tell that they want to do it, but they need that bit of a push?
Two parts to that. I see a lot of people that come past and back and forth and I can tell they want to sit down and they've even said, you know, like I've seen you down here like for a few weeks and like I've been meaning to stop and then whether it is or what it might be that takes them that time to get down there. But it's just one of those things really, the more we see it, the more we familiarise ourselves with it and then even them might searching up the socials and they go, oh, this is what it looks like, this is what it is, you know, this is a safe place to have a chat kind of thing. So whatever that might look like. But yeah, plenty of people do that. Just for the way that I do the content, I said I wouldn't, you know, grab people and be like, oh, okay, come over here and sit down. Like I'd have conversations with people and just like, hey, how you going? But I'd never like say, you know, come and sit down or do this. It was kind of like have a chat. And then they like, I found a way for myself, I suppose, in my posture and the way that I sit there to be approachable and look like it's a safe place. So people just go like, come down. And then, you know, I've developed the art of, I guess, ironically listening, and that's all I do really. I don't give advice. I don't tell people how they should feel or what they should do. It's literally just sit there and, you know, hold space and give them a few cues of where to go or, you know, ask a bit of advice of what they could share to other people kind of thing. But it's just, you know, and the biggest thing I've taken from that is people feel heard by it when you just shut the fuck up and listen and you make eye contact and you hold that eye contact, because there's no point in me providing this safe space and me looking off every 2 seconds to the path and going like this and away, because then they just don't feel heard and valued. Whereas you look them dead in the eye and you hold that space for them and make them feel heard, seen and valued, then it's a powerful thing that, you know, like we said, it's so much powerful and so much easier for you to talk to a stranger than it is, because ultimately we feel burdened by talking to our friends and family with the shit that we hold closest to our chest or that's weighing us down. So a complete stranger with no bias gives us an opportunity to, I suppose, unload all that. And, you know, I don't sit there and go, hey, you're a good or a bad person, or is this your side of the story? How does the other person feel? Or perspective on it. It's just sit there and listen, and they just dump what they need to dump.
What you're talking about there with the eye contact and being a good listener, essentially, it's communication skills. And you're a young dude. Is that something you had before this project, or you've started it and then quickly developed it because of a need to do so?
Yeah, a good bit of both, for sure. I've always been a good people person, a good listener, a good public speaker, and been able to hold that space. But yeah, it's still hard for me. Like anytime now, I'd like eye contact so intimate. Like ultimately. Like, it's one of the most intimate things you can do, look at someone and then like not deviate from it. So I've definitely had to develop that for sure, and learned that that's how I hold space. And, you know, actions and listening and holding that can be a lot more powerful than, you know, telling someone how they should feel or what they should do.
I know communication's a big thing with mainly men. We struggle with it so much. And the same with listening, like awkward silences. A lot of people can't sit in an awkward silence. And that's something that you seem to have embraced, that it's kind of encourages who you're speaking to go, I'm going to fill that void and continue talking. Did that take a little bit of adjusting for you to actually learn to embrace that extra time of not jumping in and saying something else?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that form of learning how to listen. And I spoke about it with a few people, and most people listen to speak. Is like you said, as soon as someone stops, they're jumping in, they're adding their 2 cents, and then they're making it about them. And that ultimately ruins the situation. Whereas if you can learn to, you know, hold that space, and, you know, I've had like probably minute pauses down at the beach where people have been talking and they've been getting deep, but not like quite the way there. And then you leave it, and you just leave it, and you just hold it, and you just allow, and then they go like 4 or 5 layers deeper. And most people would just jump in there and be like, oh, this is how I feel, or this is, you know, my opinion. Whereas that, you know, takes away from the validation that you're giving them by allowing them to have no restrictions to what they say, or you're just holding that space and, you know, having patience. And then, like you said, with men especially, is like I said before too, is eye contact vulnerable and it's intimate, and men struggle with that, obviously, with the vulnerability, especially with mental health. So for them to be able to hold that eye contact and not get awkward and not shy away from it's a hard thing. So yeah, definitely developed over time, and I'm blessed with all the gifts and lessons that going down the beach and simply talking to strangers has given me.
It's very cool. When we're talking about men and how they communicate, I know there's been a big study into the men shed. I don't know if you're familiar with all the stuff they do, but kind of the concept behind that is men talk shoulder to shoulder, not face to face. That's kind of a communication style because they do feel a little bit uncomfortable with that. So you put a lawnmower in front of them and they're all trying to fix it, but they sort of talk side to side. You've gone at it in a much more intense way, and it seems to work, but I think it just needs all those skills that you were talking about, the ability to give space, the ability to make them feel heard. So massive props for you doing that. And I think it's something that the people sort of listening can try to implement a little bit in their own life, just talking to boys and stuff like that. Big props to that.
No, appreciate it.
One thing I did want to ask is us doing what we do, right? We know what we're doing. We're out there talking about mental health and we're telling people certain messages, but every now and then you'll end up in a conversation that's maybe a step deeper than you thought, or it went in a direction you didn't think it was going to happen in. Has there been moments like that in your journey where you're like, wow, like that's some heavy vulnerability, or I didn't think I'd find myself in this position?
Yeah, 100%. There's been some deep stories that, you know, really get to you, but I don't know, there's this sense of like gratitude and so much that I get down there with hearing these stories, because it's just like you might go home and I'll be stressing about like paying rent or something like so small or something that should not matter, and then someone, you know, a complete stranger that doesn't know you, doesn't owe you anything, it's like there's no strings attached. They've just like bared their heart and soul to you and said, hey, this is my story, this is me, like there's no judgment here, this is a safe space, and they've literally told you their life story, and you've just got to like take so much from it. And then obviously with the sad ones and the deep ones, you know, I've had an 18-year-old lost a 22-year-old brother in a workplace explosion, and that happened at 7 a.m. in the morning, and they turned off for life support at 7 p.m. that night on a 22-year-old, like just crazy. And then you've got like Rachel shared a story, and her partner, they moved over here 6 weeks from New Zealand, and he died in a kayak accident out in Stradbroke Island, and they never found his body. Like all these things that are crazy, but the strength that these people show to sit down with a stranger and share that, and then show how powerful they are as people and their perspectives on life and what really matters. Because we can get caught up in all the little things, but when you actually realise how valuable life is and how precious it is, it's a powerful thing. So, yeah, I feel so much gratitude for people to be able to come down and share these things, and it puts life in perspective for me. And people always say, like, you do amazing things for all these strangers, and I say, hey, they do that for me tenfold. Like as a 24-year-old, especially male, in this day and age with everything that goes on, like, I don't have a lot of answers to things, but the perspective and the guidance that complete strangers give through their own experiences and lived experiences is fucking so powerful. And yeah, I love being able to share that back with people, and that's obviously why, you know, people find so much value in it.
That's something I wanted to touch on. So, because you just said you're 24, your emotional intelligence is like so far advanced for your age. When I was 24, so that like there's 10 years difference between us. When I was 24, I was not thinking or doing even a quarter of the shit that you're doing, and I wouldn't have been able to comprehend how to deal with these burdens that other people are putting on us, on you. What do you reckon the difference is in the last 10 years for, because there's plenty of guys that are your age that are going out and doing these incredible things with this emotional intelligence that you've actually got. What do you reckon the difference is that's happened in the last 10 years for doing that?
I think, as you boys will know too, society's probably opened the door a little bit to making it, you know, more common and accessible. But I think back in those days, like, you wouldn't see anyone sitting in a park bench or being vulnerable in that aspect. It would probably, you'd probably get shamed for it, like another bloke, or given, taking the piss taken out of you. Like, just these little things that, when you are vulnerable like that and put yourself out there in such a way, like, because people look at it and go, oh, you don't, it's so easy for you just sit in a park bench to talk. But like, even that first time, just to have that much vulnerability to go, this is me in all my aspects, and I'm going to sit here and, I don't know anyone, and have these conversations, whether it be that or other thing, amazing things that men are doing at a young age. It's like, there's good reception to it these days. And I mean, it's a hard one. There's good and bad. Like, I still somehow get dickheads on social media that will say stupid shit. Like, and my platform is probably the least thing you can take the piss out of, and people still find a way to do it. But there's always going to be that balance between social media these days, where you get, for the one or two bad comments I've got 2,000 other comments that are like saying how good it is. So I take a lot of pride, and I'm very proud of the parents I have, and the values they've given me, and especially my mum with my emotional intelligence and who I am as a person. Is I'll back that, and I've got the confidence to hold that. And whether that's the elite levels that I played at sport and everything that I've been through, like, I've been through my challenge as well, and I've made a shitload of mistakes, but that's held me in good stead to put myself out there and be vulnerable. But it's a tough place, especially for men, because it's as we know, like, I think there's a crazy stat that I think it's between now and Christmas there'll still be another 250 men that'll take their life. Like, it's just ridiculous. And a lot of that is like, men will wear their hearts in the sleeve and they'll put themselves out there, or they'll be vulnerable, and then the piss gets taken out of them, or whatever might happen, and it all can spiral out of control pretty quick. And with men that don't really talk about feelings, but I feel like it's getting better these days. I probably went a bit off track there, but it's definitely getting better, and there's more reception to it these days. It's more acceptable, but I don't know if that hits home for you when you were back then, but the scope of things has definitely changed a lot with social media too, for the good and bad. But I suppose on my platform, I try to capture the good things and be able to share those experiences to give value to others. But
social media has definitely aided in it becoming part of the mainstream discussion, becoming like, to be able to talk about mental health. We didn't have that as much. Like, there wasn't Instagram and all that sort of stuff until probably about 2015 or something. But I think a big one is it becoming more mainstream to do self-development, and a lot of that leads itself to the communication styles we were talking about earlier. There was no one talking. There wasn't a Jordan Peterson and a Chris Williamson and all these people talking about how you need to build yourself up, like, develop these skills, develop your communication. And I think the younger generation is more privy to a lot of that free educational content through social media. And I think that's having a good impact on the way they can communicate. Because at the end of the day, like, a lot of these guys that are taking their own lives, yes, it's because people take the piss out of them a little bit, but it's also because they don't know how to communicate. They have these pains inside them, and they don't know what to do with them. They just carry it, and they carry it until they can't. So that's my take.
I think it's a very good take. You probably nailed it.
Your sign it's often said something along the lines of, you're having a bad day, have a chat about it. Does it always say that?
I have changed. I had like a Father's Day special one that I took down and did that kind of stuff. So one, I normally have two down, and one's like the handwriting and the message on it is terrible. I'm gonna have to redo it for the tour, but still keep it my handwriting. But one says like having a bad day, like leave a kind note for a stranger and take one. And there's just a bowl filled with notes that strangers have left and can take. You know, if you're having a bad day, come and read one. And man, the crazy thing with that is these people, complete strangers, will come take a note from another complete stranger, and the note that they'll get like could be anything, and it seems to always be like what they need to hear or what's going on in their life. And I'm just like, fuck, man, the universe is so powerful. Like, just like, it's crazy. And I love that little thing because people always go like, oh, like shit, that hits home. Like, and it's just crazy how it can be a random note from someone that's left it a week ago or just like 5 minutes ago, and it's come out and go, oh shit, that's exactly what I need to hear. So I've got that. And then the other one just says, you know, if you have you got a few minutes to talk with a stranger? So you know, one's a little easier to just go and grab a note and kind of like break the ice. And some people are like, oh, I'll sit down now, or some people just leave that and that's fine. And then some people just want to yarn and chat. And the crazy thing is, it's pretty cool how, you know, you go for your afternoon walk or ride, and that tends to be how we clear our head, you know, physical exercise. After the day's done, you kind of debrief or go by yourself, and it's kind of that thing of, it's the last thing you probably thought you needed was going to talk to a stranger, but you didn't know that you needed it until you saw it. And then people just go, oh, fuck, I don't know why I'm sitting down, but I just felt like I needed it, and they come sit down. And then the big thing I see is like people come and they're like so heavy, like energy-wise and like posture and everything. And the more that I've sat down there and analysed these, the more I can see it and understand it. But people come so heavy and weighed down, and then they dump a heap of shit just with a complete stranger, and just like they walk off, they fly off like a fairy. Like, they're so light, and it's so fulfilling just to be able to hold that space for people to, you know, come one way, leave another, and just be no strings attached to why you can't just, you know, have a chat. And that's the beautiful thing, is it's just human connection. It's just two people having a chat. Like, not that I talk that much, but I just sit there and listen really. But yeah, obviously shows there's a big need and a big void for people just to be heard more than anything, and other people just not make it about them and not say anything and just listen.
Was there a point where like you set out from watching others do this on social media thinking like, yeah, it's fake, it's done this, so you wanted to do it being genuine? It's obviously transitioned now from you doing it for social media to it's so much fucking bigger. Like, what you're doing is, it's on a massive scale, and it's almost like you've got a purpose now doing this. Was there a point where you realised like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this just for social media and have a bit of a chat with some people, to what it's transitioning into now?
Yeah, there's a few layers to unpack there. I think originally a reason why I started it too was I've got this like real deep, I suppose, I can call it depression, but anxiety and fear around death and dying and the concept of it and what comes next. And I think I've got such a high of life where I love life, and the people that I've got in it that like scares the shit out of me, the unknown, that it, you know, one day ultimately it's all going to end and what happens. And for one, I thought, what a beautiful way to try and understand that and develop my own journey of growing and dealing with that, than listening to people's, you know, own perspectives and takes on life and through their own experiences, what they've had with, you know, grief and death and loss. But essentially that fills up my cup, is human connection, positive impact, and doing that on as much as I can. So originally when I started, I was like, all right, you know, nothing come out of this, or I could, you know, there's a potential for this to go viral, and, you know, this helps me do something that fills up my cup, because sure as hell installing shower screens doesn't fill up my cup. And that's, you know, the realistic side of it. But it, you know, it was that beautiful thing of like the what if in a positive way. It was like, you know, I could be installing these shower screens for the next 12 months, next year, you know, 2 years, or, you know, I could go sit at the beach and, you know, something magical could happen, and, you know, I could be doing something else. And then ultimately, you know, in a few months I'll be taking off around Australia doing it full time, and holding that space for people. And it's just, yeah, it's incredible, and it's going to be cool to have that experience where, you know, I've got thousands of messages of people saying, you know, we want this in Adelaide and Sydney and Melbourne, and it was just like, how can we, you know, make this happen and keep it authentic? And it was just, you know, we'll grab a van and we'll just travel around and just pull up anywhere and have these chats. So it's definitely developed in a lot of things. But I have this saying that I like to say, and it's like, if you do things for the right reasons, the right outcomes will come from it. And it was never like, oh, I'm going to do it to get famous. Like, even now, like, I don't could not give a shit about the followers. To me, that's like, they're people, like that's impact. Like the bigger the platform, the bigger the impact. It's not like, oh, if I get this many followers, I'll get, these brand endorsements and this and that. Like, it's got nothing to do with that. Like, I'm so content with my stuff, and like I said, that fills up my cup and lights my fire in me. So it's just like, the more I do that, the more I fill up my cup, the more I have an impact on other people, the less that cup is filled, and I feel a bit better about myself. And when it's all said and done, I've lived a life and had an impact on people that I can be happy with, and go, like, you lived a good life and you made an impact.
So you spoke a lot about how it fills up your cup and it's making you feel good, but you're having such a positive impact. So I think that's a great way to get purpose, is by doing something that works for you, but it also provides such a positive force to the world. So awesome. The tour you're talking about, the Human Connection Tour, a little bit self-explanatory, but why did you call it that, and what's the goals for it?
Yeah, Human Connection just made the most sense. It's just what it is. I just wanted to have a tour that was all about just connecting with strangers in towns and cities all over Australia, and it just been nothing more than that. Like I said, there's no strings attached. It's just a couple of people talking, and like I said, I had thousands of messages from people saying, hey, like, fucking love what you do, but, you only do it in one park bench on the Gold Coast. Like, I want to come down and have a chat with you. And I was like, well, originally I'd spoke to a few, people in that realm that had big charities and non-for-profits, and the more I sat there in these conversations and meetings with them, I was like, just like, there, do this and we'll do like that. And I was just like, this feels so unauthentic, and to the reason why people found so much value in what I was doing. It wasn't going after a big charity and sitting in corporate rooms and doing bits and pieces. It was like just sitting at a park bench with some signs. And I thought, if we could get a van sorted and we could, announce this tour and kind of just drive and pull up where all over Australia where these people are. And coincidentally enough, I want to travel and see the world in Australia as well. And I think this is a beautiful way to start that, and I get to do that. But we through a program I did, it was like a personal development workshop. There was an element in it where you had to fundraise for a community cause. And a couple of people knew what I'd already, that I'd announced the tour, and that's what I did. And they kind of put it forward to the group, and we had 90 people fundraise with their power of social media and a few different things, and we raised $90,000 in 3 days. So that's all gone towards the van. So I got a camper van getting, converted from a Volkswagen Crafter, and then, a few fundraisers and bits and pieces. We've got a big one coming up, just to raise a bit more money that'll cover fuel and whatnot. But for me, it was like, I'm 24, I've got no mortgage, I've got no responsibility, I've got no kids. If there's ever a time to, use the momentum of what, this void that people are finding a lot of purpose and a lot of, want and need for. And then, there's no better time to do that. So why not do it now? So I was just like, all right, we'll make it happen. And, what have I got to lose? I've got a beautiful family that if shit goes belly up, I can fall back on, and they've got my back, and that'll be what it is. But, it was literally just like, fuck it, why not? Like, I want to travel, I want to do things, I don't want to be installing shower screens. This fills up my cup. People need it. It was like this, everything that I could want and need all wrapped up in a thing. And I was just like, fuck it, why not do it? Why not try? What's the worst that can happen? Like, it's already doing so amazing. Like, what if you chuck that in a van and you can do it full time? Because ultimately I go down there once or twice a week, maybe after work. And like, it's pretty shit at the minute because I don't get any content up, especially at the minute, because I'm just flat out with work and life. And that's reality, is like, I live paycheck to paycheck, and I've got bills to pay, and I've got to live, and life's expensive at the minute. And I'm flat out at work and can't even get down the beach half the time. But, if I've got the capacity to do it full time and go and have all these amazing chats and these impacts, and we can run programs and all these things all along around Australia and use the momentum, then like, fuck, if you can get nearly 100,000 followers across platform in, 7-8 months while doing it part-time a couple of times out of the, week, imagine the impact you can have like doing it like that. So it was kind of just like a fuck it mentality, and just like, what's the worst that can happen? And obviously all that following speaks for itself to the impact that it's having and the impact it can have. So just want to make the most of that and jump all in. Yes.
Does that first night where you drove home regretting not getting out drive you to go, yeah, fuck it, we're going to send it with doing this tour?
Oh, for sure. It's definitely a good reinforcement
Yeah.
that, like, when you put yourself out there and you're doing things for the right reasons, you've got pure intentions and people are going to benefit from it. Like, why aren't you doing it? Like, and then that plays into my fear and anxiety around death. Is like, I can install shower screens and fucking hate my life and not enjoy it. Or I can go, hey, like, fuck, this light's a fire on me, and like, why not? Life's too short to sit back and go, oh. Especially like I completely understandable from people that have got mortgages and kids, and it becomes a lot harder to do those things. But if I'm making excuses when I'm 24 and got none of those, then there's never a better time to do it. So it's just like I said, fuck it. Like, it's meant to be. Like,
I'm picking up a recurring theme that you're over shower screens.
yeah. Yeah, this last few couple of months has been really testing me. But that's also another thing. It's fucking hard when you're so close to something that fucking lights you on fire and makes you feel so good, yet you're not quite there and you've still got to do the stuff. But then it's just like this thing that I'm in, this place I'm in now. It's just like, and what I get from these conversations at the beach is the importance of being present. There's nothing more important than being present. Like, you miss so much if you're living in the future. And like, I find myself all the time just living in the future because I'm installing these shower screens. Yes, I don't enjoy it, but like, for one, I work with my best mate and we have a great time, and yes, it's shit work, but like, it could be so many more worse situations to be in. But it's just like this constant reminder that the most important things are right in front of you, and you've got to live in the moment. Because I can live for 3 months when I'm on this tour, but like, ultimately that's me missing out on all the things right in front of me, all the small things, all the things that, you know, really matter, I guess.
So much of what you were talking about just before resonated with me. I'm sure you heard it with like sort of what happened at Blokes Advice. Is we had this network essentially of boys grow, and it got bigger and bigger, and there was a whole community sense. And then when we started pushing into the mental health stuff, it was the same deal. Like, we were trying to push people to other charities and make sure we were doing all the right things. But it was a bit stale, right? People would bypass that because they wanted to talk to us because we were doing stuff on a grassroots level, which is exactly what this tour is. Like, the boys literally we've done these van trips around the country. We called it the Black Dog Tour. And it was hugely successful and had an impact that I guess those big corporates in that charity scene probably struggle with. And that's what we're trying to do with Better Bloke as well. Like,
It's the personal touch. Like,
it's grassroots. That's what it is. It's grassroots. It's real community.
It's authentic.
It's authentic.
Authentic. And maybe not that the big corporates aren't genuine, because they definitely do have it. But once you become that size, it's very hard to get that genuine feeling across with.
They're going large scale corporate impact. By no means we're saying they're not doing great things, but it does lose that personal touch.
It's all about still pushing a paycheck. They've got so many people on the payroll and all these things they've got to supply. They've got to go off. They've got to sit in these big corporate meeting rooms and talk to people that, you know, whatever it may be. But, you know, blokes like yourself, and this is two of us, when it's just me, like, for me, there's no ulterior motive. Like, for me especially, it's just sitting having a chat and, you know, fuck it. It lets me travel Australia, and that's what I want to do. It lets me not do the shit that I don't want to do and does stuff that fills up my cup, experience these things. So it's just like, well, there's no strings attached, and like, there's so much you can do with it. Like, from how much it's changed in 6-8 months to my life completely flipping on its head. Like, imagine another 6 months. Like, fuck, like, it blows my mind. Like, it's so exciting. But like I said, it all goes back to just doing things for the right reasons. I'm not going out there trying to fucking rally people behind and make money and sell merch for stupid reasons. Like, I'm not a charity or anything. Everything goes back into just paying for itself to allow me the capacity to do it full time and do it. And then, you know, the great thing is it's just human connection. I can do this anywhere in the world. After, you know, I've already got New Zealand tour lined up after, you know, Australia, and then it's just like, might as well go to country, just have these chats. Like, there's so much experience and knowledge and experience out there that people have gotten. It's just like, these simple things of just human connection and how people operate in their own life experiences is so easy to share back, but so, I suppose, missed. And, you know, people go straight past the little things, the little conversations. And I was talking to someone the other day too, and they're just like, you know, it's frowned upon or seems strange when a stranger wants to have a chat with you. Like, you know, what's your deal? What do you want? Like, it's just because we're all consumed by social media and all these different things. It's just like 10 years ago, I'm sure you went to a coffee shop and you all just sat there and you talked to each other and you knew each other's names and whatever it might be. Now, go down to a coffee shop, everyone's sitting in the corner on their phone and they don't even interact. Like, it's just the reality of where we're at. But if you take all that away and strip back all the layers, it's just human connection, and people are all the same. We've all got the same feelings. We all go through the same shit. Like, why not just... Kindness is free. Just have a fucking chat. Like, it's epic.
Kindness is free.
Kindness is definitely free.
You're a great listener, And maybe a lot of people haven't heard you talk on a whole bunch of things. So what we thought, it's a very original idea. We actually brought a jar with notes and stuff. You might have seen that down there. So we thought we'd let you pick a couple out of that we can have a chat about.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to grab
Done. Well, get started, I suppose.
This is a great idea. Where did you get this idea from, Matty?
some? I saw it on TikTok.
Did you?
The idea of cancel culture is just a smokescreen for people who don't want to be held accountable.
Well, that's a bit red hot.
It's red hot. I mean, I'm not going to get cancelled.
The idea of cancel culture is just this, what was it?
Just a smokescreen for people who don't want to be held accountable.
I reckon that one's a bit red hot.
Yeah, that one's spicy.
Do another one. Let's put
Do another
that
one? All right. Good start.
there. We haven't seen this. Might have put them together for us.
The future of education isn't in classrooms, it's in communities.
Big fan of that. Community's everything. Well, that's essentially what you're doing around Australia with your tour. Well, but see, the thing is, it's not just your tour that you're doing as well. You're doing, were they listening rooms, aren't they?
Yeah, I've got listening rooms. Yeah.
Are you planning on doing those Australia-wide too?
Yeah, and with the intention to have them facilitated past when I leave by people and them to be full-time. So I don't know whether I'll start the listening rooms as a charity and they can fund themselves and be held. But yeah, that is the intention to have those spaces full-time, because ultimately we've got all these rooms for, AA rooms for addiction and all these things that we have, but there's nothing for fucking life. So I've seen firsthand how powerful it is to get a bunch of strangers in a room and just say, like, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm doing, and it's just incredible. Like, the whole point of it was I had so many people ask me, like, what's it feel like to, talk to people and hear these things? And I was just like, you've got to experience it to understand. Like, you have to experience with no ulterior motive, just sit down and a stranger, just open up and say what they're going through and allow you to hold that space and learn from it. And, you can learn so much just from listening, like we say. So you put 30, 40 strangers in a room and you'll give them 5 minutes to talk about their shit. It's crazy. And the power of permission for authenticity and vulnerability is like one person will say their story and they'll get a couple of tears and you'll have fucking 10 other people in the store, as soon as they're gone, start crying just because someone's given permission for it. But it's just a beautiful thing that, everything they talk about, it's their own experience, but so many people in that room can relate and it's been a part of their life. And it's so validating for them to hear that another stranger just go, hey, this is no context to this. This is just what happened in my life. This is my upbringing. This is my trauma. This is whether it was domestic violence or, alcoholism in families or whatever it might have been. It was just we're all human and we all go through these things, yet we think our experiences are so unique to ourselves, so we bottle them up and we don't talk about them. You put a stranger in the room and say, hey, share us your story or just listen. The big thing there is people don't have to share. They can just go, hey, I just want to listen. And they're the ones that come to me and they're like, holy shit, I didn't say anything, but I got so much out of that. Or they get to it, they're like, I had no intention of speaking today, but after I spoke, heard 10 other people talk, so much resonated to me and I just wanted to talk and needed to talk. And it's just, yeah, they're fucking incredible rooms to be a part of and they're so simple. Like I said, it's just human connection, it's just talking, but obviously there's ground rules involved and confidentiality and a few different things that you have to facilitate. But other than that, like I said, you're just given a platform for strangers to go, hey, it can be, like I said, childhood trauma, or it could be anything. It could be, what I'm going through at the minute, a breakup. It could be just general mental health at the minute with how life is, the cost of living, whatever that might be. But yeah, it's so powerful. You just chuck them in. So I'm going to have them all trying to set them up and facilitate them past where I'm going. And that'll be a fortnightly thing for people to just have for life, I guess, and a bit of a life dump.
Do you often find people will come out and talk about a certain experience that they think they're alone in, but then it just happens to be that even in a small room, they're not alone?
Yep. I had, we did one of them not too long ago, and the first girl that spoke about a domestic violence case. And there was 8 other girls in the room that had been through pretty much the same thing. Out of a group of 25 people, 8 other people had the same experience. And they're all strangers to each other. How validating is that? That's fucking powerful.
But none of them would have known that without the first one having the courage to speak up about it. So we found that when we did the talk down in Penrith, that we did our talk and then it got to a point where I just went, said to the room, who wants to jump up and tell their story? And there was sort of crickets for a little bit. We've spoken about it before. And then one guy put his hand up and he told his story. And you could just tell in the room, like, everyone's mood changed. Like, you then had others wanting to tell their story because it took one person. And after that, like, all the conversations changed. It was pretty fucking special.
That's that permission of vulnerability. It's so powerful. Like, you do it anywhere in life. You've got a big group of people. No one wants to be that first one. As soon as you break the ice, someone says, hey, this is me. This is my entirety. This is me getting vulnerable. People go, all right, that's permission for me too now. And then everyone just opens up. And then, like, our room, sometimes we have the whole room crying at once. Like, someone's talking and they've had this experience and everyone's just like, fuck, this is safe. I can be me and I can be vulnerable. And they're all crying over someone's story and it gets to them and they're just like, fuck, that hit home. Like, it's, incredible.
That's a credit to you as a bloke with the vibe that you're putting across, for people to feel that comfortable, that they can actually open up and you're creating a safe space. That speaks volumes about sort of who you are as a bloke, and obviously why we wanted to get you on, because you're doing just beautiful shit, man.
No, I appreciate it. But yeah, it goes back to that. Like, you do have to set boundaries and you have to facilitate it to a point where there's ground rules and people know what's acceptable and what's not, like phones being off and, confidentiality, not sharing it outside the room, and just like little things, like we have little icebreakers and just little bits and pieces that if you can hold it right, it works well. But it's just, like I said, and then it's powerful for me I usually dump my shit first or say how I'm feeling, be vulnerable, because, the same things, like I said, when you do anything, if the person leading it or doing it's, doesn't be vulnerable or doesn't put themselves out there like that, why should other people, when they will never feel that way? So if you can set the tone pretty early and then have someone obviously next that feels like they can, then the room really opens up and people open their hearts and just allow it to come out, which is great.
In your experience, when it comes to 25 to 50-year-old men, blokes, they're kind of our audience, do you notice that they are a little bit harder to crack? Like, obviously we spoke about their difficulties with communication, but also their resistance to vulnerability. Do you find it harder to get them to open up? You can say yes, they are tough cookies.
That's the thing. I don't think so. I've had all the men that I've had come down have been really open. Like, I get less men than women. But like, even across the social medias and stuff, like the age and male and females, like it's dead even, which is great because it's good. It's like, it's human connection. But in terms of in person, and then especially the listening rooms that I've had, way more female dominant than male dominant. Whether that's because, you're asking men to sit in a room and be vulnerable it's a pretty daunting thing to get to. I'm sure they would benefit from it extremely, getting in the room. But the hardest thing is getting people in the room to go, hey, like, this is a space where there's going to be vulnerability. There's going to be these things that historically you're told the red flags or things to avoid or not do as men, which is sad. But
I'm real bad for using that V word. It makes me.
He won't call it vulnerability.
No,
he hates the word.
Can't stand
He doesn't
the word.
like it. What did we decide we can call it? We came up with a term that is exactly the same thing, but
it's not the word itself. So it's just changing. It's just changing the terminology. It everything that it represents is exactly the same, but it's the word. The word has such a stigma that, for men anyway, for myself,
he's one of those tough nut blokes.
Yeah,
but I guess your thing is you're inviting people to come. So the guys that are coming are the guys that are accepting of that. We've run a bunch of events over this year, and we found it really quite difficult if we try to run a predominantly mental health event where we said we're going to talk about this kind of heavy stuff. It's going to be great. It's going to be good for you. We find it much harder to get people to come. But we've been doing a lot of barbecues. Just come down, have a chat, bring the family. We'll talk about some stuff. And we kind of have all those conversations, but it's under the guise of it's way less serious. Don't stress, just come down. You know what we're about, but come down.
Human connection.
Human connection. So that's how we're sort of getting guys involved to have the conversation, because if you lead with, this is going to be heavy, you're going to be vulnerable, it's a little bit harder to get them across the line.
100%. And that was one of the things with the signs and stuff. I didn't want to have a sign and get people down and be like, oh, I want you to open up about the deepest darkest thing you have, and then like all these things on the sign. It was just like, come have a chat. Like if you've got a few minutes, just have a chat with a stranger. Like it wasn't, you know, like you said, if you lead from a real dark place or a real deep place, it's hard. But like I never wanted to, like it's easy to just put it like on signs like, oh, come and sit down, I want to ask you this question in particular. Like I find it really powerful that like there's no preparation. And when there's no preparation, it comes straight from the heart because you're put in the spot and you've got to just say how you feel, how you think. It's not like, oh, I've read this question, I've gone away for a half an hour and I've, got this answer in my head now. Now I'll give myself permission to go sit down and answer that. It's kind of just leaving it open to interpretation and just going, hey, like just come have a chat. Generally just ease into it, just like, how's your day going? Hey, what's going on? Like tell me a bit about yourself, and then it just kind of eases into it, and then they go, fuck, like, yeah, for sure. But like you said, yeah, when you, especially with men, if you lead straight from the deep stuff, it's kind of, a wall kind of goes up pretty quick and they shy away from it in most cases.
Just real and raw. If you don't allow any preparation, then you're probably going to get the most genuine engagement and reaction from those that you're speaking to.
100%. I do that with podcasts now too when I'm doing things. Like even when I'm on live TV, no prep.
No prep.
No prep.
That's the story of my life.
Right up Rob's
That's
alley.
me. Because I don't know if this is just a guy thing, but well, it's not because you're a prepper. I'm not a prepper. But I feel like if I prep something, there's more to go wrong because I've run through it a million times. And if it doesn't go the way that I've prepared it in my head, I just turn to shit. It all goes to shambles. So I would much rather just, like you, for example, I'll just sit down and we'll just have a chat. Just keep it real. Keep it real and raw and just, get to know the person that you're speaking to. And yeah, it's beautiful.
That's the powerful thing though. Once you realise it's just a chat between a couple of blokes, a few blokes, or it's a stranger across the bench, it's just a chat. It's just human connection. It's just stripping back all those layers and all those expectations. And it's just like, hey, how the fuck are you as a person? Like, what's going on? What's your story? Like, no judgment here. Safe place. Just tell me a bit about you. Like, as soon as it's that, then you like take all these social norms and expectations that are attached to things and strings attached, and you just go, hey, this is so easy. Like, and so much in these day and age is influenced and enforced by social media that you have to feel a certain way or act a certain way or say a certain thing or do this and that. But like I said, strip it all back. It's like so simple and so like bliss.
I think the way that you're viewing the world as a young dude, super inspirational, and a lot of guys will get some good stuff out of this chat and everything else you're doing. Before we round this one out, is there anything you want people to know about you or all this upcoming stuff that you have going on?
I think just the tour is going to be epic. I think looking for as much support as I can behind it. Everything goes back into funding the trip and just making it possible and just having these chats. But yeah, I think, I can't even sit here. Like I said, it's going to be crazy to think about what's going to be in 12 months' time and what's happening. So it's a pretty exciting time. And it's just jumping into just sharing people's stories because we've all got these stories and we've all got these experiences and we can live and learn off each other and take 1%. My big thing was hindsight before the fact is something that we all strive for that we never get. But if you can take 1% of someone else's journey that's been through in a situation that hits home with you, then that's something you hold on to and that might, hold you in better stead going through that experience. So, no, I'm just super rapt to be here and talking to you boys. And, like I said, this tour is going to be so pure and so everyone's like, oh, you've got to have your route mapped out and all these different things. But I just want to wing it, hey. I just want to leave it to fate and the universe and just go with the vibes and where the people are at and just have these conversations. That's a beautiful thing about the van too. Is someone be like, oh, I don't have a car and I'm in this rural place. I'll be like, well, let's go. Like, let's go have those chats. Like, there's no expectations on what it should or has to be, and it's just leaning into what's uncomfortable, what's easy, what's pure. Like, just all of it's going to be awesome. So, anyone all around Australia that wants to be a part of it or share their story or jump on or have a chat, just hit the socials up. And I'm going to be driving around, be going down south first, so starting in March and go through New South Wales and Sydney and Melbourne and then make our way down to Tassie and then across, obviously. So, but yeah, as you boys would do as well, like DM's always open, always there to talk to people. And if anyone needs, a bit of help, it's a tough one too because I always get asked for advice. it's so against me because I'm like, it's what I don't do on the page, but everyone feels like they so comfortable with me and safe that they kind of ask. I'm just like, I'm not a psychologist. I can't really tell you, but I love connecting with people.
You don't have to be a psych, man.
I'll send them to you boys, but no, it's always good. I just connect with humans and stuff, but DM's always open. That's the most important thing, and if everyone to know that they're not alone, and shared experiences make the world a better place, and shit's tough and it gets hard, but we're all in this together, and the world's a better place with you here. So keep your chin up and keep chipping away. It's a hard place to be a man out here, but you guys are doing epic, and I'm proud of all of you, and I love you all, and can't wait for everything that's ahead and to connect with all of you. So it's gonna be epic.
I think something you just said then will resonate with so many people is that you're not a psychologist, you don't have like all these degrees in that, but you listen. A lot of the time, that's all everyone needs, man. And like we've said it time and time again, like we're not professionals, but we get blokes, we talk to them day in, day out. All people need to do is just have an ear to listen to and someone to vent to a lot of the time, and that's enough.
Yeah, I'd love to challenge, like, especially men as well, just in friendship groups that might not talk much or a lot, or there might be expectations on things, just to try and hold space. Just go chat to your mate and allow them to see that, take yourself out of the situation for a minute. Don't add your 2 cents in there. Don't make it about you. Don't try and one up. The male ego is a beautiful thing, but a shit thing sometimes. We want to one up someone's situation, be like, oh, but this happened to me and whatever. Just, leave it to yourself and hold it to yourself, and just hold that space and allow people to feel that you're actually listening. And like I said, try and keep that eye contact, that body language, shoulders back, and sit there and just let your mate know that, he's got a safe place to talk, where there's no expectation, there's no bias or you telling him this is how he should feel. Just listen and say, hey, I hear you. What you say is valid, and I'm going to hold this space for you, because that I get it all the time on messages and with people that it saves lives. It literally saves lives, and it allows people to feel validated and feel like they can say what they need to say because it's a safe place. So yeah, I challenge people to grab a mate and sit down with them and show them that it's a safe place to talk, and that you're listening, because it is. And if you just sit back and listen rather than talk, it's a fucking powerful thing, and literally could save a life and help your mate out for sure.
So that's the challenge. Call a mate and don't talk about you, just actually listen to him. Before we round this one out, we do a little segment called Bloke of the Week, where we jump into Blokes Advice, our group, and we pick a guy that's either done something incredible, added some awesome value to other people. And this week we've got a pretty cool story.
It's a very cool story. So we've got a big supporter of the Better Bloke Project, and he is a very active member within Blokes Advice.
What's he done, Rob?
He's gone out and got the Better Bloke Project tattooed on him, which is pretty special.
Pretty crazy after about 32 episodes in, which is not long.
It's not long at all, but like we've had some unreal conversations with this bloke, and he's going through his own stuff, but the fact that he feels strong enough with what we're giving him in the conversations we've had, that he's gone out and permanently put the Better Bloke Project on his skin.
On his neck.
On his neck, yeah. It's special.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It is. So our Bloke of the Week this week is Robert. You know who you are, brother, and we respect and appreciate everything you're doing. So thank you so much.
If you want to find any more information on yourself, your videos, and your tours, we'll put all the links here in the description. And then you can jump onto our website, betterblokeproject.org, to find out information about the events we have upcoming.
As always, be better. Thanks for tuning into today's episode of Better Bloke. If you got anything out of it, show some love by dropping a 5-star review below.
If you want to learn more about everything we're doing, head to the description, hit the links, and follow us on the socials. If you want to learn more about the project, head to betterblokeproject.org.